All right. Well, now that's been ages. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me get started and let me check to make sure no one else is in the waiting room, which I hope it'll just pop up here.
Right.
Okay. We're going to hope it just pops up. All right. So today, I'm glad you all decided to jump on with me. What we're going to be talking about specifically is menu planning. And we're going to be talking about how we can adapt technology to menu planning. And my title here is a little bit different than what I presented when I was asking everyone to come. I was talking to everyone and saying, hey, you could save time, you could save 10 hours. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into that conversation, I really want to talk about menu planning from the perspective that directors have a lot on their plates. Directors, managers have a ton on their plates, and you all know that because you guys are working with managers across the nation.
Yes.
And I just wanted to propose that there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. That's not the problem. The problem is actually the system we're trying to operate in. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about some of the tools that I am working to develop. I love to hear what you all are working on at PCS, or where you see there are needs, because you all are working with, so many people, but where you see the needs are. And if you hear anything that you feel like it's something that we could further discuss, please let me know. Okay.
Will do.
And so just a little background on myself. I'm Alana Jones. October of 2026 will make 20 years in child nutrition. And so I'm excited to be celebrating my 20th year. My background is in food service management in K-12 schools, but I also have a unique background in that at that same time I was working in child nutrition, I was also a daycare owner. Don't ask me how all that happened. It's a long story, but for 8 years of my career, I was a daycare owner as well. And so I see a couple people are coming in, so I'll let them in. And so with that, having that background, okay, you're working in child nutrition K-12, but you're also the owner of a daycare where you're a CACFP sponsor. I was able to get a lot of insight on what's happening in child nutrition programs. And this is one of the biggest things. I've been doing menu planning for all 20 years. And, as AI has arrived and become bigger and bigger, I'm now working as a consultant, and I was still feeling the overwhelm that the directors were feeling. And I said there had to be a better way. And that's when I started to really get out here and try to develop tools that were going to help kind of leverage this particular task. So with that, let's begin. Here's a little screen here. It says, menu planning didn't just become harder, it became more dangerous. And I know that's like a triggering word, like, Alana, what are you talking about? Danger. But the reason I'm talking about danger is because I'm interacting with child cares. I'm interacting with K-12 charter schools. I'm interacting with K-12 schools as a consultant. And I am seeing gaps in compliance over and over and over again. And it's stressful to the leaders. It can sometimes be tragic for the teams. And by tragic, I mean because some of these programs are losing their capability to operate National School Lunch Program and CACFP program because they're failing on these compliance audits. So that's why I say it's becoming more dangerous. We all know, I think many of us on this call have been in child nutrition for several years. So we remember the days when it was a little bit more relaxed than this. When I was coming up as a director, my managers, number one, were my first teachers, okay? They taught me everything that I know, my managers. But they would always say, and I adopted it as a practice, that our number one goal is to feed the kids. They're like, despite everything going on, we have to feed the kids. And so, feeding children well, making sure that they had access to healthy food and variety, keeping those nutrition goals, that's always been a part of the program. And it's always been our major focus. But through the years, this has become even more complex. Okay. So a program which was already a little bit hard to operate is now becoming more complex. So compliance has always been a part of what we do, but it's getting stricter. It's getting stricter. Documentation. So whereas in years past, they may have been a little bit, auditors might not have been so strict on documentation. Now we're seeing that become strict. We're seeing outside companies being hired as auditors. And like with those companies, there's no gray. It's very black and white. So your documentation has to be really, really on point. So that is becoming a little bit more complex. Substitutions. So we are out of the COVID era, I think. I say I think because, you just never know what's going to happen. But those years that we were in COVID, substitutions, even though the regulations were relaxed, substitutions due to the fact that you couldn't get food was a big thing. And now what remains is, making sure that our staff are educated on what is a proper substitution. And so this is something that can make this process of menu planning a little bit more complex. Then we've already mentioned documentation, but production records. So I'm seeing a interesting trend, and you all may or may not see this for those who are working with K-12 schools with nutritional analysis software. So I'm seeing in some school districts that they are doing a part of the documentation on their software, and they're doing another part by hand. Okay, they're still using paper. And I see this with production records all the time. And so they're not really getting the full, experience of actually having this documentation in their hands and then putting it back into the computer systems because it's a little complex. Okay, guys, I got to stop here and plug in my computer because, of course, the battery wants to die. Let me do that right there. And then, as I've already mentioned, there's consequences for audit, staffing shortages. I think if you ask any district, this is their biggest challenge, staffing shortages. And when you have staffing shortages, that impacts your menu because it can impact your menu on a number of reasons. Number one is the level of training. If you bring a sub in, they may or may not have the skills or background to implement that menu or to make the substitutions or serve it at the correct serving size. So that becomes now a complex challenge. And training in general is something that is required. But it's an interesting concept that I hope to, continue to look into. We always get that comment, well, we've taken this training every year. What's really changed? And so, there's a little bit of devaluing of the training experience. And so with that, we need to look at better ways of training our staff so that it sticks better, so that it is fresh, so that they do leave these trainings that are technical and the trainings that they have to take every year, that they leave them with something more valuable. And then, as I mentioned, vendor variability. So now we've had changes in the dietary guidelines as of January 2026. So now we're going to see possibly some changes in the food that we're going to offer. And that's going to lead to a little bit of vendor variability. Are the foods that we're used to serving going to be available? Are the foods that we're used to serving going to change? Are we going to need to update these nutritional requirements? We don't know. We're seeing a little bit of that drip out right now. But this is what menu planning looks like now. It's not just about serving wonderful, great food, but you have all these other factors that have to play a role in what we prepare and serve each day. So with that, while this expansion was happening in menus and compliance requirements, the work got more expanded, right? However, our job titles didn't. And neither did our systems. And what I mean by that is that not every school district, not every childcare has access to advanced tools. For many of us, as I mentioned, it can still be pen to paper. Sometimes it's Excel sheets. Sometimes, you may have someone in the district who can do a little bit more advanced advancement with their tools. Sometimes you're lucky enough to have a nutritional analysis system, but if you don't have all those things working all the time, then sometimes your systems are broke. Like for instance, I'll just give you an example. I was working with a child care over the past few weeks, and great people, love what they do, very dedicated to their program, and CACFP is a big part of how they serve their children. And they were keeping electronic spreadsheets, Excel sheets. Well, in this case, it was Google Sheets. Okay, they were using the state prototype for this. However, inside the state prototype, a formula got jacked up. That's the only word I can say it. And so I'm helping them with an audit, and I'm like, hey, this doesn't even add up. Like when I look at it, I know this doesn't add up. And they're like, yeah, I've been noticing that for a few months. And I'm like, oh, for a few months. Okay. But with that, the tool that they were using, there was no double check on the back of it. Right. And so they're trying their best to do their job, but sometimes their tools are broken or their systems are broken. So with this leaves CNP, child nutrition professionals, CACFP administrators, NSLP directors. This can sometimes leave them in a place of overwhelm. And this is not something that they're imagining. Anyone who is either working in child nutrition or serving in child nutrition or is even a consultant or a vendor knows that this feeling is real. And oftentimes it's not because those directors and those leaders and those managers are not working hard, because they are. They certainly are. They're oftentimes pouring their life into what they do. If you talk to any CNP, leader, they're going to tell you they do this for the love, because they love serving children. They love serving their teams. And so they're willing to go above and beyond. But sometimes they're simply just putting out fires all day. Okay. And it's because of all these responsibilities that they're carrying. So it's not from lack of effort, because they're putting in the effort. What it is actually a result of is infrastructure and support. So think about that Excel sheet that wasn't calculating right. That director was, kind of doing their best. They noticed something was a little off, but their infrastructure and their support was missing. Okay. So obviously that leads to leader burnouts. Okay. And this is not a character flaw. This is just something that happens when there's just not enough support, not enough structure, and not enough systems in an organization like CNP where things are so complex. Okay. And really what this burnout is actually a signal that we need better systems in place. So this is how a director would usually respond. They would try to work harder. Okay. So this is something where you see a director who comes in early, they stay in late, they work on the weekends, they redo production records, they go out and visit sites, they sit with the managers, they redo their work, they do their best to fill the gaps. But again, they can only do that until something breaks. So let's ask ourselves, when this breaking happens, what's really happening? When we were talking about gaining our time back by introducing AI, and we're going to talk about technology, and we're going to talk about some other tools as well. What we are really trying to gain back is trying to get away from what is called decision fatigue. So oftentimes in our organization, we lose time because we are redeciding the same decision over and over and over again. And so that would be like if you are a CNP director and you have a manager who calls you every time they have a substitution. Well, that is a decision that you are redeciding over and over and over again. This is also something that occurs when people are redocumenting. So you don't have a particular procedure or even a form in place for production. So you're redocumenting the same information over and over again. This can be seen in something like rewriting a procedure over and over again, and then rechecking. All these redos are where we're losing time. And this is something that happens with menu planning all the time. So here is where we get into how to save those 10 hours. First of all, here's a 10-hour truth. One of the reasons why it takes 10 hours to plan menus, and for some of you, it may not take that much. You might say, it by no means takes me that much. But what I do want you to kind of audit is, where are you compensating for missing systems? What are the steps that you are redoing over every month that is sucking up your time? What are the tools that are breaking every month? What are the signals that you're receiving every month? Like, for instance, if it's the day before the new menu cycle begins and you don't have a menu in place, that is letting you know that you have some system problems. That's where some of your time is being wasted. And that's one of the areas we want to try to correct. So this is what happens when we don't have operations in place, okay? We call it compliance fragility. It's compliance fragility model. So this could be an example of a director or menu planner planning their menu. They go by memory. So they may have in their memory that, okay, every time we serve chicken nuggets, we want to make sure we serve it with mashed potatoes and broccoli. You know, that sounds simple. That sounds simple, but it'd be better if it was stuck inside of a cycle menu. Okay. And we'll talk about cycle menus here in a few moments, where there was something that always triggered that to occur, whether it be a system, a standard operating procedure, a piece of technology that always pulled that information into that menu plan. Okay. Because memory is fragile. So I can't remember what I even had for dinner yesterday. And that might be just because, you know, I'm always going and I'm always working. But for the most part, I think some of you can't remember what you had for dinner yesterday either. And it's because we are busy. You know, we are busy. So depending on our memory only for systems, it won't work. Okay, that's a fragile system. Then in many cases, we are just keeping binders. So, you know, production records are a really good tool. They are a great tool if you know how to use them. Meaning, if you just take your production record, complete it every day, put it in a binder, and never go back and look at it, well, this is another example of a brittle model. Okay, because those production records give us information. They give us opportunity to forecast. You know, so forecasting is when we know that, okay, last month we cooked 200 pieces of cheese pizza, 180 children ate, we had 20 servings left over. So how much should we cook this month? Okay, you might go with the same 200, or maybe you go with 190. But that's the kind of information that you should be gaining from your documentation. However, if that documentation is just sitting in a binder, this is brittle. Okay, this is a brittle model, all right, because it's not really useful. But systems, having a system where you go back as a process and you go back and you check the last time you served cheese pizza, you check and understand what else was happening on that day because you put it in your notes and you plan from there. Or if you do have a nutritional analysis system where it keeps up with that information, maybe it estimates for you. That's a type of system. And that is more stable. That's more resilient. We're not relying on our memory. We are using the data. And those are the type of systems we want to have in place in our organizations. So here's our shift. Here's our shift into our conversation about AI technology. Because what we talked about to this point are the technologies that have just kind of been dropped off to us. We didn't really have a choice. You know, we had to use an Excel spreadsheet because we didn't have anything else. We might have inherited a nutritional analysis system that just has not even been updated in the last 2 to 3 years. And so what we want to step into are modern leadership designs, okay? And that's where AI can play a role. So when we are talking about AI from our perspective here in this training, and as we continue this conversation for years and years to come, we want to understand where AI fits. And for the child nutrition program operators, it fits as an administrative support layer, okay? An administrative support layer. So let's kind of break into that and see what that means. Number one, as an administrative support layer, AI is not here to take your job, okay? And we're hearing that a lot, right? We're hearing that out in the world, as we get on social media, if we watch the news, they're trying to really, convince us that AI is here to take our job. And I think in some ways it could, especially those who decide not to adopt it. Like if you decide not to adopt anything about AI, then it might take your job. Okay. But for those of us who are really examining the tools, getting to know the tools, and actually looking at them as something more than tools, we are going to be able to utilize this information as leverage. Okay. But here, when we're talking about AI, what we need to understand, it is not going to replace the director. It's not going to replace the menu planner. It's not going to replace the administrators of the CMP program, okay? We want to use two different thoughts here. Number one, when we're talking about AI, we're talking about compliance first AI, okay? So this is AI that drafts information, but it does not make the final decision. It suggests information, but it does not approve. And its role is to organize information, but not override it. This is what we call human in the loop AI use, okay? And for our purposes, when we're talking about CMP, it's always got to be compliant specific, okay? Then when we're talking about AI, we also have to pair it with SOPs, standard operating procedures. This is where it becomes supercharged, superpowered. This is where we see it now act as a documentation assistant, a planning support tool, and a consistency engine. Okay, so that is the mindset we put on when we're talking about AI here in CMP. We also need to make sure when we are working with AI and child nutrition programs that we set up guardrails, okay? So guardrails have to be set up because AI technology is still advancing. It's not perfect yet, but CMP is complex. We've already talked about that. There's lots of rules, lots of regulations, and we got to get it right every time. So we can't just be working in AI all willy-nilly and not keeping in mind that there has to be some rules around how we use the tools. Okay. So again, the AI, the role it's going to take in the task that we work with is it drafts, organizes, reduces repetition, saving us time, but it is never the deciding factor. So when you all receive a follow-up email from me after this presentation, you'll get opportunity to see what is called the plate framework. And I'm just going to talk about it here just a little bit. And then you can also go on my YouTube and watch an explanation of the plate framework. So the plate framework is what is called a prompt. Okay. If you are working with any kind of AI tool, you have to put information in before you get information out, and that is called a prompt. And so the plate framework is how we as CMP prompt the AI tool. So this is a proprietary system moving AI use from creative guesswork to regulatory infrastructure in CACFP and NSLP programs. So we're going to work on this together in just a few minutes. Check my time here. But PLATE is an acronym. It stands for P, prepare, L, lock, A, ask, T, test, and E, execute and educate. And so every prompt that we put in the tool, in our tool of choice today, is going to be ChatGPT. We're going to, number one, make sure that we prepare. And by preparing, we're going to select the role for the AI intelligence that we're using. And then lock. Lock is when we're going to lock in those USDA regulations and make sure that those are in place before we even ask the AI tool to complete the task. Then we're going to ask. So we're going to ask for whatever it is that we are trying to get from the tool. Then we're going to test it. So we're going to take that information and put it back in that AI system and make sure that it gives us the information back. And then our role from there is to press submit, and it's going to execute and give us education back. Okay. When we approach AI from this perspective, we can make sure that what we get back is in compliance. Okay. So what you all will receive after the training, and it is a free tool for you to use, is this plate framework. You'll go to, I'll show you the plate website here at the end. You'll go to the plate website. And for any of you guys who are unsure on how to prompt inside of ChatGPT, it also works for Claude or Perplexity. This tool would do it for you. Okay. So let's kind of see if we could work on a project here. And we're back to the conversation about menu planning. One of the first steps of menu planning is drafting, okay? Even if you're lucky enough to have a nutritional analysis system, you still are going to do some drafting before you take it into the system. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast, just because kind of working in the computer systems, you don't always get a full view of all the materials that are needed. Sometimes you just still need the paper and pen. I am still one of those people who prints off a lot of things, you know. So the drafting process, but drafting process can sometimes take up to 2 hours. And so let's see how we can work with drafting in one of our AI tools. So as I mentioned, our tool of choice today is going to be ChatGPT. And one of the reasons I like to use ChatGPT as a tool is because it produces strong, structured drafts, and it handles templates well, and it's easy to refine. So I like it because it's easy. It's easy to use. There are limitations. So as I've mentioned, the plate framework, it needs guardrails. And if you've ever used ChatGPT for just anything even personal, one thing you might notice is that sometimes it just makes up stuff, okay? And it also can assume things and be very vague. So those are the limitations. So the best use case in CMPs is to, number one, give it those guardrail instructions. And we're going to show you here in a moment some instructions that we give it. I do believe, though, that it's best overall for menu drafting when using templates, okay? Claude is another tool. I like Claude as well. It gives you policy language, which is, something that is very appreciative here in CMP. It goes into deep explanations. It uses a conservative tone, which I like when I'm writing professional materials. The limitations is that sometimes that professional tone can be pretty wordy. Okay, so you just kind of keep that in mind. And the formatting that it spits out is not always the type of formatting that I like to use when I'm doing menu drafts. So I say that it's best to use when I'm doing something like SOP language or policy drafts. So that's what the best use case for that. And then the third option is Perplexity. Now, what I love about Perplexity is the citations. You are going to get really, really good citations. So good that you can click the link and go right to the USDA document it comes from. So it also pulls live sources. And so that is really a really good strength. But it's just not as useful for drafting. So I don't use it for menus, but I definitely use it when I'm researching a topic. Okay. Now, these are just my opinion based off me using AI here for a while. But you all can make up your own decision. But here for our example, we're going to use two tools. Okay. So our first tool is going to be ChatGPT. Okay. And so we're going to send a prompt there. And then I'm also going to talk about the tool that I've designed called Menu Maven Mia. All right. So to do this, I'm going to get out of here. Now, ChatGPT, of course, was, giving us some problems this morning just because we wanted to jump on the presentation and make an example. So I'm hoping it's working this morning, but let's jump into ChatGPT. Okay, so I would usually start a new chat, but just because ChatGPT was a little wonky this morning, I don't want to go that route. So I'm just going to go into one of my folders, okay? And so remember, we want to use the plate framework, okay? And so I got my little cheat sheet here in front of me. And so the first acronym of plate is prepare. And so prepare is to set the role of the AI tool. So whether we're in ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Claude, we still want to set the role. So here I'm going to say, act as a USDA expert. I want expert menu planner. Oops, spelled that wrong. For the National School Lunch Program, I'm going to use acronym. You can spell it out if you want to. So now I have prepared the AI tool. I'm going to now lock it in with some additional information about rules. Use the K8 meal pattern standards for lunch. So I'm telling it who it is, and I'm telling it what standards to use. To now, I'm going to ask. I wanted to draft a 5-day lunch menu. And I'm going to give it a little bit more context. I'm going to say include serving sizes because I like to know. And it's also going to help me verify that it is a K8 meal pattern. Okay. And then I am going to go ahead and submit. Wait, I'm sorry. I forgot one of my own steps. Let me go back in here and stop this really quickly. Let's see. Here in the ask, I also like to tell it what format. Please return this to me as an Excel sheet. I'm gonna send it back through. Okay. See if I messed it up too bad. So I like it to return it back to me as an Excel sheet because then I could download it and I could go in and manipulate it. So let's see what it does here. If you do not have a ChatGPT, no better day to get it than today. We want to make sure that we are learning how to use this tool. ChatGPT is currently still free for most of the tools that we would use. You can also upgrade to their monthly plan. Last time I checked, it was $20, and y'all, it's worth the $20. Okay, let's see what it gives us here. So I'm going to download this. And let's see if it drafted that out for me. Okay. So this thing here in front of me. Okay, so we got some good information in here. I'm gonna make this a little bit larger. So I see I got a baked chicken, 2-ounce equivalent with some brown rice. We got some steamed broccoli, fresh apple. Okay, so that makes a good draft. All right. A turkey and cheese sandwich, beef, taco filling, cheese pizza, fish sticks. And it's got those serving size in there. So it did it exactly the way I wanted it to. I see here in the milk that it's only selecting one milk. It's kind of alternating that. So maybe I would go back and say, we have 2 choices of milk every day. I could go back and clarify it that way. But let's go back and talk to the AI a little bit more. So what I'd like to say is, please add 2 choices of milk each day. Now, for those of you who are new to AI, you kind of talk to it the same way that you and I talk. All right. Once you give it that first really strong prompt, you could just begin to ask it to modify your menu the way that you would like it. So I'm going to say 1% white milk and fat-free chocolate milk. Okay. So let's do that. And while it's doing that, I want to say this, expand this to a 21-day menu. Do not repeat the main entree and only sandwiches on Monday. Okay. On Mondays, let's say that. All right. And the reason I wanted to come in and add a little bit more definition here is because this is where the time saving comes in. Okay. So it's got a draft there. It's going to go ahead and populate. I'm going to go ahead and send this next instruction here. And while that is populating, that is our example there for ChatGPT. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, ChatGPT is a tool that's kind of out there in the universe, wherever all this AI stuff is happening. And we did set a little bit of guardrails there. We said that, okay, I wanted them to act like a expert menu planner. I also wanted the tool to give me the K8 meal patterns for lunch. I could have been more specific. I could have uploaded the actual regulations. The assumption here is that it is pulling in that information, but we don't have any verification of that. Okay. The menu planner will be able to, determine whether this is a actual compliant menu or not. But oops, it didn't now. Okay. So we're not going to use that example, but I do want you to see that we could have turned it into a 21-day menu. And I think this is happening just because there is something happening with ChatGPT right now. I was having a little problem with it this morning, but what should have happened is that it expanded it into a 21-day menu. Okay. And for those of us who are planning cycle menus, planning a 21-day cycle menu, making sure that it has enough variety in it, making sure that it has enough texture, colors, making sure that all the children's favorite items are on there. That process can sometimes take 2 to 3 hours. Okay. And if you don't have a system in place where you are running that cycle again in the next 2 to 4 to 6 weeks, then you are repeating that task over and over and over again. And while it might seem simple to, just swap some things out, it usually never is. It usually never is. You say to yourself that, okay, we got a holiday, so I'm just going to put, the item that was on Monday, I'm going to put that on Tuesday, and then it knocks nutritional compliance out. Or you lose one of your required vegetables, or you lose the beans or something. Okay. But drafting inside of the AI tool, you can catch that information quicker, because look at what it's saying here. It gives you a little summary here. Remember, we put those guardrails in, and that's why it's giving that summary. Okay. All right. So that is our example here with ChatGPT. Now I want to show you another tool, okay? And as promised, as part of this presentation, I was going to show you a menu drafting tool, okay? So this menu drafting tool is actually a part of a larger series of AI-powered child nutrition program operations agents, okay? And so this is the We Are CNP Pro website. And here you all will get a link after our presentation. You'll see some of our agents. And the agent that we're going to look at right now is called Menu Maven Mia. Now, what's different between Mia and ChatGPT is that the guardrails have already been hard programmed into her background. Okay, so when we're talking about the USDA regulations and rules, they're already sitting inside of this tool. Okay, so here we could either prompt, really vaguely, or we can prompt really expertly using the plate prompt. But the plate prompt is already built in here. Okay. So I just want to kind of show you how we would go through the process. We would select a lunch. And remember, we're drafting. Okay, we're drafting. This is not in substitution of using your nutritional analysis system. It's not in substitution of using the USDA tools that are required. This is just so that we begin to get an idea of what we want our menus to look like. Okay. And we do that in a quicker way. So I'm going to plan a K-5 elementary level. Let's just do a 2-week rotation here. I could put in some more guardrails. What I like about this tool is here in CMP, we got some little funny things we like to do. Like, for instance, don't put grits on truck day, okay? Or don't put baked chicken on truck day. Or Mondays, I always want to serve a breaded chicken item because it's fast, right? Those are some rules that are really specific to CMP. You know, it's just a way we do things. It's a way. And you can put some of those ways here into this model. You could tell it, serve chicken wings every Thursday. You may say, do not use pork, okay? You might put some information here like what are the students' favorite foods? Because this is a cycle menu draft generator, we don't want to lose some of those favorite foods. So you might say always keep pizza on every month. And then this tool allows you to add some of your previous menus as well as your order guide. So it's going to pull from the information that you are already using. Then from there, on this page, you can build your cycle menu draft. You could come up with a substitute plan, like we talked about substitutions and making sure that we always have a plan for that. You can map your meal patterns. You can go ahead and get that order guide ready. You would have some production record support tools, and you can also scan yourself for compliance risk. But let's just go ahead and build this cycle menu. And it goes through a similar process like ChatGPT. And now we have that lunch that's populated. And we could go ahead and export it. We can go ahead and ask it to modify as well, just like we did in ChatGPT. But the moral of the story is whether, and I'm going to stop the share here so I can go ahead and make sure that I am resharing again. But the moral of the story is no matter which tool you used, whether you use ChatGPT or you use Menu Maven Mia, you save time, okay? That is the moral of the story, is that you saved time. And that's what the leverage of AI tools are. So let me get it to present here again. So in that example, you saw that we can make some substitutions, an easy prompt for substitutions, one that I'm not going to show us today because we are running a little bit over on time, is that you could go to ChatGPT or Menu Maven Mia, and you could ask it to provide you a substitutions list, okay? For instance, you want substitutions for all the required red, orange, green veggies, as well as legumes. And you want that tool to complete that task for you, and then you want it color-coded. You can prompt that inside the AI, and something that might take you several hours to complete now turns into minutes. Production records, we've already talked about that. So you can go to the tool and it will produce production records for you. You could give it more guardrails. You could say what you want your production records to look like. I'm actually in the state of Alabama, and I operated there for several years, and they have their own template. So you can upload that template into the AI tool, and it'll make a template for you and spit that information back out to you. And again, you can use that prompting plate method to do that. And then ultimately, once you have turned over these tasks to an AI tool, here's how you can then begin to get some of that time back that you've been wasting because you just didn't have systems in place. So menu drafting and all the variations usually takes you 2 to 3 hours. Now we saw that that could happen in minutes. Substitutions in documentation. You have that manager who calls you every week and asks, what can I substitute for the broccoli again? Well, just go ahead and make a form and send it to her. Production records, filing and audit readiness, and rework that's prevented. All that together can save you 10 hours if you swap over to using an AI tool. So what does this mean for us? Well, it leads us to a future where hopefully there's less panic, more confidence, and we feel more in control of our tools, our systems, and also it lets us focus on what's most important in our programs. And that's feeding kids, and that is taking care of our staff, and that's staying in compliance, okay? So as site directors, number one, remember, you were never meant to carry all of these operations alone. As an administrator, remember this, consistency protects you and it protects your program, okay? When you have systems in place that allow you to complete the same task the right way every time because it's a written procedure, you have a tool in place that double checks that leads to protection. And also, here's the divide. We can continue to have heroics in our programs, meaning that we are just firefighters, always putting out fires, always kind of responding instead of being prepared. Or we can go ahead and develop the systems now and use these amazing tools that are available to us to do so, to develop systems, okay? Because systems are the only things that scale, okay? Just an example, how many of you have worked in a child nutrition program where the person has been there for 40 years who makes the spaghetti? I've worked with several programs and I know this to be true. This person makes the spaghetti and they make it every time. And when that person retires, no one knows what the recipe is. That's just an example of a broken system that happens. And now the kids are screaming. They're like, oh, the spaghetti doesn't taste the same. And that's just a funny example, but that's what happens in CNP programs when we don't actually follow systems, when we don't develop them, we have those kind of breakdowns. So here's our goal today, design over discipline. Better systems beat more effort every time. So here's my invitation to you. If you are a person who has been struggling in these areas, and today we just talked about menus, but there's so much more to talk about when we're talking about using AI technology and the CNP operations that we are completing on a daily basis. We want to start where the pressure is the loudest. So if menus are a challenge, start there. If your finances are a challenge, start there. If inventory is a challenge, start there. Start where the pressure is the loudest and invite AI to the table, okay? So if you all have liked our conversation today and you want to continue the conversation a little bit more, I have 3 opportunities for us to work together. Our first opportunity is what is called Tier 1. And this is when you have access to the Menu Maven CNP AI agent. So that's the agent that you all saw that we prompted for a menu. And this is for menu management, okay? And so this is menu drafting, production record drafts, substitutions, and really lifting of your mental load, okay? So this is when you now have an AI-powered tool that acts as an administrative assistant for your menu planning program. And this tool goes live on February 1st. So that's one way we could work together. The second way is actually one of my favorite ways to work together because I get to work with you all the time. And that is what is called the CNP Menu Club. So maybe you love the idea of the Menu Maven CNP AI agent, and you would love to have time to utilize that program, but maybe you just don't have enough time right now. Maybe you need a team to come in and actually help you plan your menus. So the CNP Menu Club, what we do is we come in and we plan your cycle menu for the entire year. Okay. We also have the opportunity to upgrade to monthly services. And for those of you who work in the National School Lunch Program, we do offer nutritional analysis services. And we will use the tool that you are already operating from, or you can use ours. Either way, we're going to make sure that you get compliant menus every month that you and our team co-work on. Okay. So it's not a done for you service, it's a done with you service, meaning that we come together. You tell me what your kids really like. Me and my team make sure that all that information is put into your nutritional analysis system or into, if you're a child care, into your CACFP menu planning systems. We make sure that it's compliant. And you get those compliant menus way before the end of the month, okay? Because some of us are still planning our menus the week before, okay? So that is tier 1. And tier 3, this is our newest offer, okay? This is our CMP AI agent team. So not only will you get menu Maven Mia, you'll also get Lunch Lady Lana, who is our director's agent, and she is the one who's using that plate framework to make sure that the prompts that are going into all of these tools are accurate and pulling back information that is compliant. And she also directs the rest of the team. So Lunch Lady Lana directs Menu Maven Mia, Inventory Isaac, and Finance Felicia. All of these tools are available in the CMP AI agent team, and each one of them not only helps you understand the rules and regulations, but they help you complete operations. For example, Finance Felicia can be used to assess the financial needs of your organization. She will help you budget for the year. She'll also help you understand where your programs stand, whether that be meal per labor hour, staffing shortages, the cost of groceries. She can help you walk through all that information using her tools. And what's neat about Finance Felicia is that she will work with your current system. So you would be able to export your information from your menu planning system or from your QuickBooks or any other accounting system, and you'd upload it to Finance Felicia, and she'll give you the information that you're looking for. And also what's great about Finance Felicia is you can have a conversation with her. So if you wanted to ask her, which schools are purchasing above their budget for the last 3 months, you can ask her that question, and she'll get that information right back to you. Okay. Also, with the CMP AI agent team, currently we have 4 agents who are ready to go live, but we have more than 12 agents that are in the process of learning right now. So as you all let me know as CMP operators what your needs are, we are able to create tools that help make these tasks easier and again, save those 10 hours that we all are worried about. Okay. So that is the information that I wanted to share with you all today. And so the question I'll leave you all with, and I hope we got enough time for questions, if anyone could stay on and ask, is what would change if compliance for your program lived in a system instead of a person? What would that look like for you? So here's my contact information. You all will have information from me after this training that we can discuss and ways to get back in touch with me. But I love to hear any questions from you right now as far as what we discussed, or even questions as far as AI goes currently.
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to say thanks, Alana, and you've got a great thing going on there. So best of luck to you, and hopefully we'll reach out to you at some point as well.
Okay, let me know, Betty. I'm always looking for partners. So just let me know if there's any way that I can assist.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Alana.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Do we have any other questions? And you can feel free to put them in the chat as well. Okay. But with that, I thank you for attending today. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'd love to hear more about the tools that your organization needs and the assistance that you all need as well. Thanks.